Hey everyone, Ryan at Pre-Conciliar Radio. Like I said when I first started this channel and whether or not I would focus on papal statements or not, I said that it would not be the focus of the content that I wanted to cover, but that if scandals arose, I would try to be objective and call balls and strikes, much like some of the news outlets politically in the United States that I admire, where they do not always defend their preferred candidate. So today I have strike one, unfortunately, for Leo XIV's pontificate. It is all over the news or Catholic news sites. If you're not aware, the Pope made some very disturbing comments as it pertained to abortion, equivocating abortion with, say, his opinion on capital punishment and the treatment of immigrants. This is what's known as the seamless garment heresy. It developed, at least in the United States, in Chicago. It was also part of the Obama administration's Catholic outreach program in conjunction with very powerful Catholic clergy to shift the Catholic vote towards Democrats. How did they do that? Well, the heresy goes that all sin, including grave sin, is on equal level with other sins. We know this isn't true. We know, of course, that there's venial sin, there's mortal sin, there's grave matter, there's not grave matter. This particularly pertained to abortion, where Democrats who favored, I should say, the sacrifice to Moloch — I'm trying to do the return to tradition, self-censorship here, I suppose, so that our hosts do not shut me down. So let me restate that. The sacrifice to Moloch was part of the Democratic Party's platform, and to get the Catholic vote, clergy members, high-ranking clergy members in Chicago would say that, well, that sin is a sin, but so is not caring for the poor or certain other charitable works, and it's all equal. It's a seamless garment. We know this isn't true. While you should care for the poor, we also know that if you don't care for the poor, you need to go to confession. Whereas if you commit the sacrifice to Moloch, you are lete setente, or automatically excommunicated. There are levels to the sin. There are levels to sin, and the seamless garment is a heretical equivocation of sin. So we saw that from Pope Leo XIV just yesterday. This got a lot of people really angry, and I'm not going to go over the comments. There's plenty of great channels that have already done that. I kind of want to talk about why this got people so angry and how we should deal with these, because I think it's pretty obvious at this point this is going to continue. This is going to be a lot like Pope Francis's pontificate. And a lot of people were just waiting Pope Francis out. Well, now we kind of have to dig up the old playbook and figure out how to deal with these. And I want to offer a silver bullet on how to deal with these so that you can just plug this solution in to every problematic statement, because it's getting exhausting. I'm tired. Like, I'm physically tired just from reading all the news and reaction from this today. And I think a lot of people will both get worn down and dismayed if they don't have an automatic response, an automatic reaction, an automatic playbook, or a defense to this type of frankly scandalous behavior. I had to learn how to deal with this because I converted in 2020. So I had to learn how to deal with this before I became Catholic. I wanted to come into a faith that didn't change. And I also, as an American, I have a little bit of a rebellious libertarian nature to me. So I didn't want to join a faith that was akin to a cult, where I just had, like, whatever the Pope said, I had to do. Obviously, there's a line between real submission and true obedience, and then just blind cult-like following. So I asked my sponsor that because I knew enough about Pope Francis that he was controversial. So I asked my sponsor, who's a conservative or traditional Catholic, what the deal was. And he said just something very simple, which I think, if you don't have time to watch this whole video, I'm going to try to keep it short, but if you don't have time to watch the whole video, this would be the one takeaway. And it's exactly what he told me. He ended up becoming my sponsor, so I obviously respected him a lot. He said, well, Pope Francis, for all he said, hasn't changed dogma. And that's really what's important. So, like, if you're, it's no shame on you if this makes you question your faith. It really isn't. It's a completely human reaction. So don't feel ashamed by that when all these constant non-Catholic sound bits come out from the Pope's mouth himself. Don't sound Catholic, make you question if this is the true faith. It's a natural reaction. But when you know that he cannot change dogma, and even Pope Francis, for all his attempts to do so, failed at it, that's very comforting. That is Christ's promise that the gates of hell will not prevail. Okay, so that's like the short version of it. And that really, to me, that allowed me to enter into the church without trepidation. I knew where the line was, okay? And we'll get over to like a little bit into the more nitty-gritty of where the line is, so that you can apply this more in the future. But just know, Cliff Notes version, Pope Francis never changed the faith. Pope Leo, with his statements today, didn't change the faith. So that's good to know. Okay, so why are Catholics mad and why are they caught off guard by some of this? Well, they're mad because they just really were hoping that Pope Francis was the end of it. This is more disappointment. I mean, I actually argue that the statements were worse than most of Pope Francis's statements. So there's that. It is just objectively a terrible statement. But it's salt in the wound. It's doubly insulting because we were really hoping that the days of Pope Francis were over, and Pope Leo is a young pope, so this is looking like a long slog. They're also caught off guard because in the 20th and early 21st century, we had really good, like rhetorically speaking, how they handled interviews. We had two really good popes who were really solid on theology, and that was John Paul II and Benedict XVI. Now, they weren't traditionalists. There are way better popes out there. I'm not saying that. They're up there with like Pius X or anything like that, or Leo XIII. I'm not saying that, but they were. You could pretty much count on what the Pope said was Catholic teaching, and that's important. So that's why, a lot of Catholics still remember those days. And so this is even with Pope Francis, it's an adjustment period for a lot of those Catholics. Okay, so let's talk about how we should respond to any type of papal controversy like this. Because again, there's going to be many. You kind of need a playbook going forward. We waited out Pope Francis, which isn't the worst strategy, but now you can't wait this one out. It's going to be too long, and we've got another Francis. Okay, this much is clear. If you don't know that by now, well, you'll find out soon enough. But it's very clear that this is a Francis II. Okay, so how do you respond privately? First off, you're going to have an initial first reaction that is not sinful. Okay, so a lot of people will feel anger. I felt anger. Some will feel sadness. I think Taylor Marshall felt sadness. You'll have a lot of emotions, and those aren't sinful in and of themselves. Anger is not sinful. Like, we are not Jedi Knights where we have to like never have any anger. That's more of like a Buddhist type mantra. It's okay to feel anger if it's rightly ordered. If it's wrongly ordered and you can recognize that, then you just need to consciously shift it into a rightly ordered anger. And the rightly ordered anger would be, I'm angry that the Pope said something incorrect, or I'm angry that the Pope scandalized people, or I'm angry that the Pope will prevent people from converting to Catholicism. And if you read the comments on all the news stories, that's what it's done. A lot of people are saying, this is why I could never be Catholic. This is why I can't go to church. This is why I can't trust the hierarchy. And that should make you angry. Now, what you shouldn't do is let that anger lead towards hatred of neighbor. So you shouldn't hate the Pope because of that. You can be angry. I'm angry with my kids sometimes, but I don't hate them. I don't dwell on that to the point of resentment. Okay, so it's like that's the first ray, is just let yourself be human. The Catholic Church is beautiful. It lets you be human. It doesn't shame you for natural emotional reactions. You can't let it get out of control, but you are still human. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is understand that his teaching does not bind you. It's nothing you have to assent to. What you witnessed was the Pope committing a sin. I'm not going to say if it was mortal or venial. That has everything to do with his own interior. But you viewed the Pope publicly commit a sin, and we know that popes sin. It does not bind the faithful. Okay, no error can bind the faithful, but this isn't even an attempt to bind the faithful. That's not what he was doing. So you don't feel like you don't need to wrestle with that and think, oh, do I need to reassess my views and my dogma? No. As you continue, okay, so that's step two. Step three is understand that we're going to have more of these bad comments. You don't have to cling to every comment that the current Pope is saying. We have 2,000 years of church history, 2,000 years of other popes with great writings, fantastic quotes. You could spend your whole life reading all those popes before you ever got to a Pope Francis encyclical or a Pope Leo encyclical. My suggestion would be start reading on those. And that's also a grace that our Lord has given us, is that we now have 2,000 years of teaching. That's a sufficient time. So now when a novelty comes up, you can compare it to what the church has always taught. Because one of two things are true. Either the church was always in error those 2,000 years, and therefore it's not the true faith, or like the last two popes especially have kind of been in error several times. I'm going to go with the last two guys have been in error several times, because like Pope Leo's comments on the death penalty contradict all of Catholic teaching for the last 2,000 years. I'm going to go with the church. And we've had various Marian apparitions that warned of a crisis in the faith that would start at the top. So this isn't anything that should shake us personally. This was all predicted, and we have 2,000 years to compare it to. So you can rely on that. I think there's a divine reason why the crisis in the church has happened 2,000 years later rather than like at the very beginning. And know that that's step three. Step four is know that your job remains the same, which is to get to heaven. Still got to go to mass. Still got to pray the rosary. Just because scandal breaks out doesn't mean that you get to stop what you're doing. Okay, so that's how to respond privately. How do we respond publicly? This is the hardest. So like I was saying, like when I came into the church, I kind of put the issue of the Pope and what he would say to bed. By the way, the way I did that in more detail, where what my sponsor said was great, but how did I do it in a little more detail? I actually read Vatican I. I read the qualifications for papal infallibility. It's like 3 qualifications. It has to be on faith and morals. A statement to be infallible has to be on faith and morals, meant for the entire church, and it has to be ex cathedra, or from the chair of St. Peter. It basically means the Pope has to kind of wave a flag and say, listen up, everybody, I'm making an infallible statement. So this would be explicitly clear. So whenever something gets a little tricky, I just look at them like, okay, that wasn't infallible. and I just move on with my life. Okay, that's how I deal with it internally. I never had to wrestle with anything that Pope Francis said. I looked, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Then I'd look at the infallibility requirements. All right, I'm moving on. Like, it is not worth getting tangled. I'll go and read an encyclical by Leo the 13th. That sounds like a better use of my time. Okay, so that's how you do it on the interior. Exteriorly, or in the public sphere, this does get a little trickier. Sure, you could explain all of this to Protestants or whatnot, and I think that would, I actually think the easiest and simplest way, especially online where you're limited in character space, is if a Protestant's giving you crap for this, just be like, he didn't say it infallibly. Popes popes can err when they're not speaking infallibly, and they often, in fact, Pope Francis himself said he'd never spoke infallibly. So it's a negative protection, meaning that it only kicks in on those particular circumstances. So all the other times, the Pope is speaking non-infallibly. Now, we should charitably presume that he is right unless there is evidence to the contrary. So you're not always, oh, the Pope's always wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if there is a controversy, it's a negative protection, meaning if he hasn't invoked it, it doesn't protect him. So I would just simply say that. I would say, yeah, the Pope's not speaking infallibly, so he can err. And then I would add, if you want to add a little more, you could say it's unfortunate that recent popes have erred, but it does not change the faith. I would basically say exactly what my sponsor told me. I think less is more. Okay. Um, and then you kind of, like, I did this today 'cause I was really angry, like more disappointed, but like pretty angry. And I'm angry because under Pope Francis, I lost two friends who left the faith over him. So I was really angry that this was happening again. I don't want this to happen to the faithful. But then I started seeing some of the memes that came out. This was unrelated to his comments, but he started blessing an iceberg for global warming. I'm not kidding. And that also made me a little angry. But then I saw everybody was making these hilarious memes about Pope Francis blessing the iceberg. And I actually made one with a Lord of the Rings reference. You can find it on my Twitter. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you'll have a good laugh. And I do think that's probably the best remedy here. You can't fall into despair over the church, and you have to learn to laugh at these things. And laughter can defeat evil. Evil is a very serious thing, and when it's laughed at, um, it diffuses it, and it's cathartic. So find ways to laugh at some of these things, poke fun at it. Don't deride the person, but you can poke fun uh, at the situation. And then the last thing I would do publicly, particularly online, is I would co-opt it. So all of the modernists, all of the heretics, almost all of the Jesuits in the church are holding up this event as this huge victory for their weird attempt in the last 20 to 30 years to change church teaching on the death penalty. Co-opt it right back. So my meme, I guess, I'll kind of say what my meme was. So, and this is kind of related because the iceberg blessing was just like 12 hours after these horrific statements. So the modernists are holding up the seamless garment statements as a victory. And you have a bunch of traditional Catholics who are holding up the iceberg as a victory in weird ways. They're totally misrepresenting the Pope. He didn't say anything. He was just holding his hand on this iceberg. But so, for example, I made a post that he was commanding all the trad women. This is the Lord of the Rings reference to, build me an army worthy of Mordor, like have more children, which is what Saruman says to the Dark Lord. Why did I do that? Well, I just thought it was funny. I'm kind of a nerd, but it also kind of co-ops the whole message, right? Like everybody's fighting right now over, is Leo, going to be a little more like JP2? Is he going to be a Francis II? And honestly, like it's very clear he's going to be Francis II. But if you can mix in humor with a little bit of co-opting, like I would say satire is the best form of humor here. So to satirically say that Pope Leo is like super trad and wants the trads to keep having more kids, that can do two things. One, it's humorous, and two, it will combat the modernists. The modernists are seriously celebrating. We are jokingly celebrating, and that will irritate them. And it will put them on the defensive. And I think we need to do that. We need to reclaim the Pope for us. I'm not saying we should Pope-splain. That's why I said satire. It needs to be humorous. We shouldn't explain this away and try to make it to seriously say that what the Pope said was orthodox. It wasn't. Or to seriously suggest that blessing an iceberg is a good thing. It's so silly. It makes us look as silly as Protestants. So that's why you can use satire and humor to kind of combat this. Again, we're in the crisis of the church. This was foretold by Marian apparition after Marian apparition, by mystic after mystic. They told us that there would be an apostasy that started from the top. And Benedict XVI said that's exactly what the Third Secret of Fatima said. So we were warned, but that doesn't mean you have to go down with the boat too. That doesn't mean you have to despair. So keep the faith, keep some humor, and use these 4 steps interiorly so that in the future, and there will be another one of these, you can automatically go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to move on. And I would say for every terrible statement this Pope makes, read another super-based encyclical from a Pope who's a saint. I think that would be a great way to turn these scandals into spiritual fruit. All right. Thank you, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in my next episode.